Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for the right stuff in the right place at the right time, managing inventory in nonprofit organizations. Linda Pinion, the principal solution consultant from Sage, and LBMC Technology Solutions President Brian Wilson will be our main presenters today. Let me first go through some housekeeping. We are offering one CPE credit for this webinar. And so if you are here to earn that CPE credit, we'll be asking poll questions throughout the presentation. You must answer all poll questions in order to verify that you were at the webinar. So please pay attention. And when those questions come up, be sure to choose your best answer. Following the webinar, you are going to for sure receive one email from us, and that will be an email that includes the slides from today's presentation, a recording of today's presentation, and a link to a survey. And we ask you to allow up to 48 hours to receive that. If you are here for CPE credit, your certificate will be coming from a service that our sister company utilizes, and they ask that you allow up to 2 weeks to receive your CPE certificate. If you don't receive it in 2 weeks, please contact me. My email is right there, and I will help chase that down for you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Brian Wilton.
All right. Thank you, Dawn, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're sitting. We're going to talk a lot about what we call ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning today. That's kind of a fancy name for the accounting system. And you'll see that, it's more than just accounting, but that's kind of our focus. But I wanted to just quickly touch on the other things that LBMC Technology Solutions does. The accounting work, the ERP work is a big part of our business every day, but we do a lot of integration in software kind of development. Sometimes we say customization. That can be a word that sometimes people don't want to hear, but it's really not. It's sometimes, just tweaking the software a little bit to do better what you want it to do without changing the underlying rules and principles and logic of any system. But integration is in place for just virtually every client that we have nowadays. I think Linda and I decided a couple of months ago, earlier this year, that about 70%, maybe more, of clients have two or more integrations in place. And so it's not uncommon to have to bring data or want to bring data in from other systems into your accounting solution. And so what we're going to talk about today is the solution's very easy to integrate into or out of. And then kind of over on the left part of the slide there, we do all the traditional IT services, all the server side of things, and kind of moving people to a cloud environment outside of their accounting system. So if they still have servers down the hall or in a room somewhere in the basement, we do a lot of cloud migration so that people are much safer and cloud power stays on, the internet stays on, and the protection from all the bad people out there trying to hack into our systems every day. It's much safer in a cloud environment than it is generally down the hall or in that basement. And so we have lots of folks that work on that type of service or services every day. And then kind of the last one is automation. And so that really is what I would think of as more workflow. And so is getting the technology to do things that we as people used to have to do. And we could still do, but we can get technology to provide a lot of automation. And those things can be workflows for approvals for transactions. It could be looking at transactions to see if they make sense in the account that they're posted to or going to be posted to. Maybe the dollar amounts are a little bit higher than normal for a particular vendor or a particular general ledger account. And so there's lots of automation available. Some of this you hear today, we're starting to refer to it as artificial intelligence. And so, and again, that's technology doing things that we people don't have to do. And it can be smarter than we are and more reliable than we are in many cases. So, needless to say, for the last 27, 28 years, we've got 130 people that get up every day thinking about how to kind of make your business safer and more secure and how to make your technology work harder so that you don't have to spend those 10, 12-hour days around closings and so forth to be able to, you still have to work, but you don't have to work crazy hours and miss kids or grandkids sporting events and birthdays and so forth. So I think, Dawn, that's probably encapsulates most of what we focus on every day of the week.
Great. So we're going to have our first poll question. So CPE credit gatherers, this is your moment. So our first question is, which ERP or financial accounting solution do you currently use? And we've given you some choices there. If you don't use QuickBooks, MIP, Sage Intacct, GP, or NetSuite, we've got an other category for you. But it'll give us an idea of where you currently are. All right, just a couple more moments, and I'm going to end the poll. We've got 50% of the people attending are using QuickBooks. And then there's a three-way tie for second place. 17% are using MIP, 17% are using Sage Intacct, and 17% are using Dynamics GP. All right. Well, at this point, we are going to bring on our guest speaker. Today I'm going to quit sharing, and Sarah, you can start sharing your screen if you would. And
Excellent.
Sarah Demond is with us from Use. And if you noticed in the title slide and on the invitation that you received, Use is sponsoring this particular webinar. And we thank them very much. They make it possible for us to offer CPE credit. So Sarah, thank you, and the floor is yours.
Well, excellent. Thank you guys for having me today. I appreciate that. Today, we're going to have a quick chat about Use, who we are, what we do, along with some of the benefits of automation. First off, we're just going to talk about Use. Use is a, oh, let me go back a bit. Sorry about that. Oh, hold on. We've got technical difficulties here. Never fails, right? Never fails.
Right.
Uses a spin-off company of our sister company that we have started back in France. We've leveraged 35 years of experience with some really powerful OCR technology. Um, and when doing so, the use was born in the cloud in 2010. It's pretty powerful. We have offices in the US and in France, and we have over 5,000 global clients that span over 40 countries, as you see there, with over 200,000 operating entities and 300,000 users. Diving just a bit into research, Use is passionately committed to innovation. So 25% of our yearly revenue is reinvested back in R&D. And that's because we believe our clients deserve the best technology has to offer. And through those efforts, we're able to publish over 100, as you see, of those scientific publications. Now, just want to touch briefly on ERPs. I know we have a variety here today. We do work with over 250 ERP integrations. With that said, we do have over 1,700 Sage partners. Okay, so moving on, a little bit about the benefits, right, of automating this AP process. So here you're going to see it's about a five-step process. Right at the beginning, we have that purchase, and after that purchase process, the experience begins at capture. And again, this is seriously a powerful OCR engine that transform a static invoice with actionable information, right? Live with your ERP data. It goes back into your workflows and we route those with invoice verification, approvals, release of payments based on your specific parameters that you've designed. And you can control that to match really what you need. We also have what's called a no-touch workflow, and that is extremely important to have in your workflows. And we do customize those again, like we said, based on those parameters set on your invoice type, size, company, etc. And then lastly, you're going to see we're able to export all that data back into that record, accompanying from those workflows back into your ERP automatically. Okay. And then today it brings us here, right, to the benefits. What do these benefits give you? So first off, let's just talk briefly on increased visibility. And this is going to give you some greater grasp on what's going on in your organization. With invoices coming in through many ways, you're able to process those and get paid all in one solution. And we're able to see that you can check how often you're making those purchases, what departments putting those purchase requests in, how long the PO process takes, how long it takes to make those payments, and when you actually want to make those payments. It gives you just that deep dive look into cash flows, balances your inventory on hand. Really, it's knowing your in and outflows of all that cash. Another area of your AP automation, as I mentioned, is the departmental cross collaboration. And by looking at that, you're able to do so by different departments, seeing who's making those requests and purchases. People can leave those comments. The invoices come back. You can ask questions all within that same platform, not having to leave. And one area we really hear great feedback is the user-friendly interface. And many times nonprofits have varying levels, right, of skill sets. So at some points, the AP process can get cumbersome. And with our Use UI, you'd really see it's an easy to use platform, and anyone in any department can learn to submit those invoices, really taking out that middleman. And then lastly, just speaking on is vendor relationships. And obviously vendors want to get paid, right? So anytime you can make that process easier for yourself and for them, it's a win. So AP automation allows you to make those payments faster, opens you up to early pay discounts, which is great. But it also allows you to schedule those payments, right? Scheduling them with specific dates or batch payments ensures you that you don't have the late fees that maybe you've had in the past, and you can stretch out your cash flow. So it really is frees up some of your staff's time, and then they can focus more on strategic tasks, maybe such as negotiating those vendor terms. Okay, so I think with that, thanks for having me today, and I appreciate joining and maybe sharing with you guys in the future on AP automation.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Which brings us to our second poll question today. And having just spoken about AP automation, let's think about some of the struggles that your nonprofit organization might have. Are you struggling with limited budgets and resources? Do you have complex paper-based manual processes? Do you have challenges preparing for audits? And do you have complex approval processes? Then we've got, if you're not sure about your AP process, we have a not sure for you. So we'll give this a couple of more moments. Very good. So if I were a betting woman, which I'm not, I would have said that limited budgets and resources would be the number one challenge. And of course it is. 75% of our audience is struggling with budgets and resources. But 38% struggle with preparing for audits, followed by complex and paper-heavy processes, and then following up with complex approval processes. So I'm going to end the poll and move back. And Sarah, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you being here and the sponsorship that Use gives us. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for having us.
All right. We just finished poll question number 2, and Linda Pinion from Sage Intacct, who is the senior solution engineer for Sage Intacct, and who also, I think, has been quite busy hosting a lot of the customer meetups around the country that Sage Intacct has been making available to their customers. We are so delighted to have you here today and to bring your charm and your insight and your experience with Sage Intacct, and in particular, inventory. So it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Don and Brian, and nice to meet you, Sarah. So, one of the things that I will tell you, just a quick metric, everyone likes to know some stats every once in a while. As Don mentioned, I am the host and I guess presenter is the right word for the customer meetups. We just completed number 157. We started this in 2015. So we just did number 157. 16,719 people have attended our customer meetup since 2015. It is a great opportunity for you to learn from your peers, other Sage Intacct users, and to meet the Sage Intacct team. So thank you so much for advertising for me, Dawn. We're really proud of that. We believe it is part of what we do really well, and it helps all of our customers. In addition to that, I would just like to put in a second plug here, if you will. You could not partner with a better partner than LBMC. They have literally been a partner almost the same length of time that I've been at Sage Intacct. I've known this team for many years, worked with them on lots of opportunities, and presented for them many times. Whenever you make your decision, part of that decision should always be who you're going to partner with. And again, this team is very seasoned with Sage Intacct, have lots of implementations under their belt. So let's talk about inventory for a moment. Sometimes when I get into discussions with prospects and I say the word inventory, they'll say, oh, no, we don't have inventory. And today I want to make sure that when you walk away and think about what you've seen and heard, that you understand that inventory does not necessarily mean that you are selling an item. Today I want to maybe introduce a different thought, that perhaps in your organization you have a bookstore or a gift shop. Perhaps you're one of the large churches that has literally everything within the campus, and one of those things is a bookstore. Yes, you have inventory. Yes, you're buying books and albums and different gift items and putting that in the bookstore, and you want to make sure that you account for it. However, you might be one of those organizations that does not sell anything, but you consume inventory. So we're going to talk about both sides of inventory today. As you look at the inventory control process map or overview, you'll see that it's laid out in a very logical manner. You have items, you perhaps store those in different warehouses, and you impact that inventory with transactions, whether you're buying it, you're selling it, you're consuming it. And then certainly you want to have some reporting on that inventory. So moving forward, let's just keep that in mind, that we have two different kinds of inventory. Okay? So what do most people want to know about inventory? Well, as Dawn said, we want to know what we have. We want to know where it's at. We want to make sure we have the right stuff. So knowing what you have and where it's located is pretty important. So not only maintaining the right items, but the right quantity of those items. And when you have the right quantity, you're really trying to protect yourself against running out of something or having outages, as we like to say. Knowing where that inventory is. How frustrating is it when something gets received in and put away, and when you go to find it, you have no clue where it is? Or where they said they put it is not where it really ended up. So knowing where product is, where it's located, is going to make it easier for you to get to it, process that transaction faster, and then also knowing where it is going to help you speed up and provide accuracy to your counting. And when I say counting, periodically, you're going to want to count what inventory is in your storeroom or warehouse to make sure that you're in sync with the movement of inventory between what's on the shelf and what Sage Intacct says should be on the shelf. Providing all that accuracy is important because there's a cost associated with inventory. And of course, there's a report in the inventory application that is an inventory valuation report. So very simply, we're going to take the quantity that you have, calculate that out against the cost so that you know the value that you have in your inventory, in your warehouses or storerooms. Being able to track that and being able to reconcile it is going to provide that accurate costing. And at the end of the day, many of us, while we might not have a formal purchasing department, we have individuals on our team that are doing purchasing activities. And what better way to help them become smarter, better, more efficient buyers? Okay. So as promised and advertised, there's inventory that I think a good way to describe it is sellable. It's something that you're going to buy from a vendor, you're going to bring it in, receive it in, put it in a warehouse, a storeroom, and you're going to sell that to your customer, your patron, your parishioner. So you're going to sell that piece of inventory. Think bookstore, think gift shop. That's sellable inventory. The other use of that inventory is something that you're going to consume internally. Now, that could be as simple as some office supplies. It could be some special binders that you want to make sure you don't run out of them. But they have a value and you want to have visibility to them. So they are still inventory. You're just not going to sell them like you would sell those books out of a bookstore. And the great news is you can have both. You can have both sellable and consumables, if you will, in Sage Intacct. Okay. So just a touch real quick on common pain points for inventory. And this is really just more about what I talked about initially in inventory and how that whole process works. People are looking at help or for help in inventory because they can't find what they have. They don't have a process defined for putting inventory away. Do I put it on the shelf? Do I put it on the floor? In some industries, I've not known this to be primarily for nonprofits, but in some industries, some of those items are serialized or they have some special requirements around them as to where they can be put when they're received in. All of this work today, you may be doing on spreadsheets, and absolutely Excel has a place for certain activities in your organization. However, we want to eliminate or reduce as many of those spreadsheets as we can, because we know that when we do this within our system in a defined process, that we're going to be more accurate with it. We're going to make mistakes on those spreadsheets, and then we're ultimately going to say, I can't trust that data. You may be spread out, in some of the organizations, and specifically in the large churches, they may have multiple campuses. You may experience that too, and what a wonderful thing. Your group is doing so well that you have added some other facilities, and maybe they're in different cities or perhaps even in different states. You don't have good visibility to that unless you can access that information and then again trust it. You don't have a defined process for doing what we call a cycle count. So when I talked about counting inventory and making sure that what you had on the shelf is what you show in the system, and that you're synced up and all of those processes are working correctly, being able to go out periodically and check that is what we're calling a cycle count. And you may have certain items that you want to count more often than others because they're harder to get. There's a longer lead time. They're more expensive. The value of that item is more, and kind of want to keep your eye on that and make sure that you're not running out of it, or you're not buying too much. You buy a lot of something and it doesn't get consumed or sold, then you still have that value of that inventory on your books. So just being more accurate in your cycle counting helps you be more accurate in your replenishment activities. And then the last one is always, top of mind for lots of folks, and that is, what kinds of reports can I get out of this? And if those reports today are in Excel, chances are there's been some boo-boos along the way. And inventory is one of those, it's one of those things that it's kind of unforgivable. And I say that because if you turn on and start using inventory, it's a moving target. You're receiving, you're adjusting, you're selling, you're consuming. It's just a round robin of activities that are affecting that inventory. And so you need to be timely in making those transactions. They need to be accurate, because if not, I'm probably going to order the wrong thing at the wrong time, and that's going to throw everything off kilter. So just making sure that whatever reporting you're furnishing, that it is accurate, is really important, and it's probably not today if you're doing all this manually. Okay. So let's talk about our key objectives. This is something that we are giving CPE credit for, so we want to make sure that we meet these objectives today. First of all, we want to make sure that you understand how supplies inventory differs from sellable inventory. And also, as I said to begin with, you can have both with Sage Intacct. The next area is just being able to share with you a little bit of that inventory consumption process. You might think of it as day in the life of your supply staff. To also learn how you can get that visibility and trust around your inventory usage analysis, and then take that information and push that out to what we call a dashboard, so that you can share that visibility with others in your team. And then in that dashboarding, you may want to looking at some key metrics and understanding where you're doing really well and maybe where you need to do some improving, and be able to kind of ratchet up a notch in that purchasing area so that you can make better purchasing decisions. Okay.
Oh, look at this. We are at another poll question.
All right.
So this is poll question number 3 for those of you looking for CPE. This is thinking about inventory. Is your organization challenged by unorganized receiving and putting away? And you can pick more than one here. Manual recording on spreadsheets. Do you have multiple facilities or geographies? Are you lucky enough to have a wide footprint, as Linda described? Are you unable to cycle count? Have you been penalized by inaccurate reporting, or do you have other inventory challenges? We'll give this a couple more moments since you can make multiple choices here on what your challenges are.
I'm going to guess, Dawn. I'm going to say inaccurate reporting.
All right, we'll give it another moment or two. And actually, the big winner, or not the big winner, but the one that was chosen the most, challenges can't be winning, is unorganized receiving and put away. 50% struggle with that. And
Okay.
then 38% are struggling with manual recording on spreadsheets. And then there's a three-way tie for third place, with 25% struggling with multiple facilities and geography, unable to cycle count, and inaccurate reporting. And then we had some folks that have some other challenges. So thank you for sharing your struggles with us.
That's good. It's always interesting. We kind of play this game when we have the polls to see, who can read the minds of the people that are voting. But all of those things can happen to you and somewhat at the same time. I mean, you can just get kind of a landslide of issues with
Yeah.
inventory. So, yeah, we'll try to make sure that we point some of those things out to you specifically. So what I'm going to
All
do
right.
now is I'm going
I'm
to
going to
switch.
stop sharing and
Okay.
you'll be able to share your
Okay.
screen.
Perfect. Perfect. Let me see if I can hit the green button here. All right, Miss Dawn, can you just verify that you can see my screen okay?
It's a beautiful role-based dashboard that I see.
Thank you so much. All right, so I've got about 400 little blurps up here at the top, so I'll see if I can stay on point here. All right, so the first thing, let me just point out, as Dawn said, I have landed literally on a role-based dashboard. Now, if this is your first time to see Sage Intacct or to view any of our product, we're really about making sure that you have access to your information. There are lots of ways to get to your information. However, one of the easiest, fastest, prettiest ways is through our dashboarding. And the role-based dashboard takes on the connotation that everyone could be placed in a specific type of role. Maybe you're the AP manager, you're the HR manager, you're a project manager. Those different roles can have dashboards set up for them. However, you can create as many dashboards as you choose to, and you can name them whatever you want to. The point is that Dawn and I both can have dashboards. What she wants on her dashboard is different than what I want on my dashboard. And we can do that all day, every day. Brian might come along and say, I'm really not interested in what the ladies are interested in. I want more of a high level, maybe some performance cards, and I'll tell you what those are, and some metrics, and perhaps some links to some other sites that I visit on a frequent basis. And I want to do all that from my dashboard. So certainly we can do that. You can do that. These are designed for the business user to set up. They're easy. I like to refer to them as the adult Etch-a-Sketch, so they can even be fun. I have chosen out of that role-based dashboard the stock manager, just because today we're talking about inventory. And so what's important for that stock manager to have, and that's some information that's going to help them in their role. I said that I was going to define for you what a performance card is. These boxes up here at the top, these are what I call quick business insight. So if Brian comes in first thing every morning, he logs into Sage Intacct with his secure login, he can set his preference to land him or start his process on a dashboard. So he has it drop him right into his own dashboard. And then these boxes at the top, this performance card, is what he wants to see. He just needs to see some quick metrics of how the organization is tracking. And then he's going to go on and finish out the rest of his morning activities. If he wants to know more about how we got those performance cards and those metrics, where did they come from, or the detail, he can drill into any of that information. Anything that he hovers over, he can drill into and see those source transactions. He's going to have some visual indicators. He can also compare that information to a prior period or a prior month. If he wants to really get into the detail of something like item profitability or looking at an inventory item position, or coming down, maybe perhaps he wants a more visual view. So he wants to know about the carrying value and how that's trending on inventory. These are all pieces of information that are in Sage Intacct, and they are current. And you can also filter this dashboard by a specific date. So I'm looking at the 12/31/21 date here. If I chose to, I could backdate that. I could go back into October of 21 if I chose to. And the dashboard would refresh itself and give me the numbers as of that date. So this is really showing you the end at the beginning. So this is the culmination of everything that you're doing in inventory and other applications. And I'm showing it to you as the first thing that I look at through the dashboarding. Now, today we're going to focus specifically on two applications. One is inventory, one is purchasing. You'll see here there's a whole list of applications available in the solution. But again, we're just going to focus on these two today. I'm also going to utilize something that you'll like as much as I do, and that is using our bookmarked menu. It helps keep me on track, and it also makes sure that I don't forget anything that I want to share with you. But if you were a user, this allows you to build your own little personal menu, and then you don't need to menu travel. So the first thing I'm going to start out with is that inventory process overview map. And I just want to cover a few key points. All of our applications have one of these maps. In this particular map, there's one area that's pretty important, and that is the item master. So everything that I have in my inventory will have a number. It will be identified by that number and that description, and more than likely it's going to be housed in one or more warehouses. So I can have different attributes about that item in those specific warehouses. I'm going to be able to buy it from multiple vendors. I may have some special pricing, and I can group that together into a product line or category. Most of the transactions down here, if you're using all of the other all of the other applications like order entry and accounts payable and AR, you're going to be doing transactions automatically, and you won't use much of what's in this middle swim lane. What you will use is the adjustments. So if you find that you need to make an adjustment in inventory, we've defined those and we've set those up so that all of the accounting is taken care of when you post those adjustments. Now, let's take a look at one of our items that we're going to work with today, and it's a mission box. So this is an item that I've set up to supply one of my programs. It is an inventory item, so I am wanting to maintain it and make sure I have information about the quantities and where those quantities are located. So here what you see is an important line here of where I'm at as far as what's on the shelf. So on hand is what I would expect to find on the shelf. I have 50 of those. Don't have any of these on order, so I haven't entered any purchase orders for these, and I have a quantity available of 50. I don't have any reserved for anything, so as you look across this gives you a good representation of what you have, and then if you scroll down, you'll see exactly where that inventory is located. So here's where you'd have your different warehouses, and then you would have the different quantities here. So again, you can see that 50 available, 50 on hand. You can also see your cost. and it keeps track of the last cost and the last date that it was received. So this is all really good information, as well as describing that item, telling you a little bit about it, what its unit of measure is, perhaps the weight. This is being charged or coded when you make a transaction to a GL group called Program Supplies Stocked. So this is one piece of the information. If you look up here, there's several other tabs. So as you go through these tabs, you're going to be recording additional information about this item. Now, again, this is an item that I'm going to sell. I'm going to purchase it, I'm going to bring it into a warehouse, and then I'm going to sell it through that bookstore or gift shop. And that's going to change that quantity on hand. It's going to reduce it. So that whole process may, in fact, as Brian said, part of that transaction and that process, if you had a bookstore or a gift shop, that would be handled perhaps by a point of sale system. So just to make that loop close for you, whatever you're doing in that point of sale system, that transactional information would be integrated over to Sage Intacct through a connector, as we call it, and that would take care of those transactions coming in, all of the inventory movement taken care of, and the posting to the general ledger. So that's a little bit about the sellable side of inventory. Now let's talk about the consumable side. So on the consumable side, I've set up a different item. So let's take a look at that item. It's in this item master file with those mission boxes, but it is a different type of item. So let's take a look at that. This particular item, I am calling it office supplies - pencils. Now think more strategic as opposed to tactical here. I probably am not concerned really about running out of pencils, but there may be, let's just say, a specific binder or something that I want to make sure I put all of my board reports and activities and things that I'm going to show my board members in a specific binder. I've ordered it, it's special. I want to make sure that when the board meeting comes along, I have enough binders to put all that stuff in the binders. I don't run out. So I do care about how many I have on hand, and I do care where they're located. So same as the sellable item. What's different here is, notice this little box up here that says item is a supply item. And the difference here is I can do everything with these pencils or the binder that I talked about that I did with the mission box, except, and this is a big except, I cannot sell it. So I can't sell the binder, I can't sell the pencils. And the reason I can't is because I've identified this as a supply item. So that's the difference between those two items. Everything that you saw here on the inventory control menu, I still can do, whether it's a supply item or an inventory sellable item. So all of that functionality is the same. What makes it different though is when I go to buy it, I'm going to buy that through a transaction called a purchase order supplies. And I would just enter that information. I'm going to come back up here and let's just approach this a different way. So you can see I've already entered some purchase order supply transactions. So these two have been entered. The third one I just entered today. And this one here is one that I have entered to ABC Office Supplies, and you can see the information about it. You can also see that I've ordered one of these. I'm expecting it to come into that warehouse one. The price is $25. So I've entered that purchase order. It's building out some history on that transaction. So I have the transaction here, and it started from a supplies requisition. So in a role play model, it might be that I entered a supplies requisition. It went to Dawn. Dawn took that supplies requisition and she converted it into a purchase order. I may not have permission to create a purchase order. It may need to go through an approval. Once it gets to Dawn, she's going to create that purchase order. Now I've linked these two together so I can see this requisition created this purchase order. Once I've done that, then in the purchasing area, my next step in the process is to go through a receiving. So I would receive that material when it comes in from my vendor or supplier. And then a few days later, my vendor is going to send me a vendor invoice. So it's a closed loop process. All of your ledger and accounting is done at that time as well. The difference here with supplies is that when I set up supplies, it's going to utilize something called the supplies workbench. So let's just think about those binders that we've ordered, we've received them in, and they're sitting in the warehouse or maybe in our supplies closet. And what we want to know is when something happens to that item in that supplies closet, when it gets consumed, or we use the word issued. So if I want to take those binders out of that supply room and send them over to Brian for him to use to put that board information into, I need to track that. And if you're not automating that removal of those binders from the storeroom automatically, then you're probably doing it manually on one of those worksheets, maybe in Excel, maybe it's just a yellow tablet that you're just writing down, I took 3 binders. Well, guess what? I took the binders, but I forgot to write that down. So I immediately have the wrong information because no one knows that I took those binders because I didn't record it. And the next time we go to get binders, we might be short because we didn't know to replenish those binders. So all of that manual activity goes away because we're giving you a workbench. And from that workbench, each one of those transactions, you have the ability to do more actions. So if you look over here on the right-hand side, I might need to create a purchase order. And in this case, I do. I need to because I need 10 of those and I don't have any. So I need to create, or I don't have enough. I need to create a purchase order. Instead of having to leave the screen, I can do all of that creation right here. I could also say, well, those 10 items, those, in this case, those 10 pencils, I don't need them here. I need them to be sent to another location. And in order for me to get them there faster, I'm just going to have the vendor drop ship those. Instead of sending them to me and then me bundling them up and sending them on, I'm going to cut a couple steps and I'm going to have that create a direct shipment from the vendor to my other location. I may want to go in and run some replenishment, and replenishment will provide suggested POs. And that's an automated step in the process as well. And then of course, maybe I want to print that transaction. When I look at this line status, it's going to tell me where I am. This one happens to be completed, and then I have 3 new requests. So this is going to give me a view of all of the activity that's happening and be able to look at those individual transactions here as well. So the supplies workbench is going to be a way to eliminate the spreadsheets, eliminate the, oh my gosh, I forgot to record that, or the, I have to record it twice. I have to record it on the paper, then I have to take the paper over and record it in some system to make sure that I'm relieving inventory. This is a one-step process, and it's all done here between inventory and purchasing is how we're going to get that activity done. Now, in addition to that, when you start to look at inventory as an application, these are all the things that you can do in inventory. I talked about being able to do some cycle counting. I talked about some inventory reports. So an inventory analysis, an inventory valuation, that's one that I called out. These are reports that are already created for you. You can view those reports and then you can push those right out to any of those dashboards. In the supplies inventory, I mentioned something called issues. So if you want to issue out inventory out of that supplies room, you can do that. If you need to return some, you can return them. This is how we're going to keep that inventory on point and accurate. So that's a little sneak peek into what Sage Intacct is going to offer you from an inventory perspective. So Dawn, I'll let you take it back. I'll stop my
Well,
share.
great. Um, this kind of walks right into my final poll question. But Linda, there was a question earlier we asked about what ERP solutions they're currently using. And the question is, how does Sage Intacct compare to those others? And I think it involves a little bit more of a discussion, but maybe you could talk about AI CPA, G2,
Okay,
um,
I can.
Gartner.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things that you should know as a takeaway about Sage Intacct. First of all, we are native cloud. So from the first line of code, native cloud. That's the only flavor, as I like to say, that we come in. We have been reviewed by the analysts that you mentioned, Don, like the Gartners and so forth. But one that we typically like to call out is G2 Crowd. And G2 Crowd is a way for Sage Intacct users to post their feelings about Sage Intacct as a user. So it's not an analyst review, it's a user review. The other mention that Don called out was the AI CPA. We're the only solution that the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants endorses and recommends. That we treasure. It's been in place since before I started, and I've been here 14 years. So we've had this honor for a long time. It wasn't a one and done. We do have to go back and go through a process to make sure that we are still on point. But this gives you the security that you are choosing an excellent solution and one that is highly regarded not only by the analysts but by other folks using Sage Intacct, and then of course the endorsement from the AICPA.
Wonderful. So I'm going to, this, as I said, it kind of dovetailed in with my final question, my final poll question. And that's one of the things that LBMC Technology Solutions offers you, and not just you, but maybe you and members of your team, is what we call a lunch and learn all about you. You've come here today and you've learned about one of our solutions. What we would like to offer is we will set up a meeting with you. We will even buy you lunch. We use a service called Eat Engage. And you, on the day that we have our meeting, you can select what your lunch is, and members of your team and one of our experts can talk about. We can compare and contrast. If you have MIP and you're thinking about Sage Intacct, we can talk about what your specific needs are, what the catalysts for change are, what your roadmap looks like, when is the best time to do a migration. If you're, I think that taking advantage of that expertise is a value add that comes at absolutely no cost. So if you would like to take advantage of our Lunch and Learn All About You, please enter yes. And it's an open request. If you're not ready just yet, maybe at some future date you are, you just need to let me know or attend one of our future webinars, and we'll be happy to get that set up for you. And my colleague Emery Quince, who happens to be on the call, he's going to be the one that will contact you and get you in touch with the right expert on our side. So
And I will just tell you, having worked with this team for a long time, they do great lunches. So don't be shy. And it's just like Don said, it's just a great way to kind of get a little bit more information and maybe ask questions that you're not thinking about today. But after the fact, you may want to post those questions. So let me just wrap up my section with a little bit about the quick wins with inventory. So Dawn, if you could mind go back a couple slides so I don't forget something. So when you think about inventory, think about how it integrates with other solutions, order entry, purchasing, the ability to track that inventory. One of the reports that I didn't call out was the inventory register and the item activity reports. That's going to track everything that you do, every movement, every time you receive, sell, adjust, anything that you do, those reports are going to capture it. If you have items that have serial numbers or lot numbers, or you want to store something in multiple bins, or it has an expiration date, all of that is optional when you create that item in the item master. An interesting story, personal story that I will tell, Nike is using Sage Intacct, and I was the SE, the solution consultant on that opportunity, and they have a side organization that is a girls' camp, and within this camp, they do lots of different activities, one of which is archery. So in the process of sharing Sage Intacct with them, they said, well, we need to be able to bring in all the pieces and parts that go into an archery kit and assemble them. We call that kitting. Now, it was my first encounter with a nonprofit that they really were doing something like this. So I wasn't catching on to what they were doing. But kitting something together means you're buying all those piece parts, receiving those in, and then you're putting them together to create, in their case, the archery kit. And that was one of the pieces that they really needed. It was a top requirement, and we were able to solve and solution for that. All the reporting, there's many reports already created for you. The cycle counting, the Sage Intacct inventory automation. I didn't share that with you today. However, everything that you do with inventory, all those movements and transactions can be automated with barcoding and scanners. So if you want to really up your game and track all that transactional activity, instead of keying it into the system, you can use a scanner. And that's a separate piece to the solution. It's optional, but it's there for the taking. And also the fact that we're multi-everything. So we have multiple warehouses available, multiple units of measure, multiple bins where you're storing and putting away. And then, of course, you can have multiple costing methods. So average, standard, LIFO, FIFO, those are the costing methods that are available to you. So that's just a little quick win slide on Sage Intacct Inventory.
Great. And we've done our poll questions. And I'm checking the Q&A and the chat, and we don't have anything else there. So
Okay.
I want to thank our audience for taking time out of your day today to be with us. We really appreciate that. I want to thank Linda Pinion from Sage Intacct. I want to thank Brian Wilton, who is on vacation, but still joined us for this particular webinar. And I want to thank Sarah Demond from Muse for being our sponsor today. Everyone, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Dawn. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye now.
Bye.